Hello, hello, and welcome, everybody. Today, I got something a bit different for you guys. I've got a first impressions video for you on the early access build of Subnautica 2, one of the most anticipated releases for me of the past several years. I love Subnautica 1 so much. It's one of my 5 favorite games of all time, and I really like Below Zero, although to a lesser extent, and I just couldn't wait to see what Unknown Worlds was going to do with this sequel. On top of that, there's been all this drama around Unknown Worlds and Krafton, the publisher, and that whole fiasco. Go read up on that. It's actually quite entertaining just because of how incompetent Krafton has been in this entire situation. So, with all of that having subsided at least temporarily, we got the early access build, and as far as early access builds go, I am quite impressed with everything this game is offering right from the jump. I'm a little under 6 hours in, and I'm going to do everything in my power to not spoil things for you guys today. I've already turned off all of my beacons. I won't be going into any major story locations. I'm not even really going to wander outside of the initial biomes too much, outside of a couple of instances where I need to show some things. But for the most part, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as I can while going over gameplay changes, quality of life improvements, and I do want to talk about the method of story delivery at least a little bit this time around, but again, no spoilers. So, before we dive in, pun intended, let's jump into the settings real quick, and I'm just going to kind of give you a nice look at the settings real fast. My first immediate gripe with these settings is that there is no FOV slider at all in a first-person game. That is kind of egregious. It needs to have one. In fact, I noticed it as soon as I started playing. The FOV is too narrow right off the bat. I did do some innie tweaks to make it a little more bearable, so what you're going to see in-game is not the exact same as the FOV you start with. It's a little bit bigger, but otherwise, if you want to remedy the situation, apparently there is a plugin you can download for Unreal Engine that you can kind of just go look it up. There's some articles on it. I think PC Gamer has one. But you can go and download this plugin, stick it into your Subnautica files, and it'll allow you console commands, which directly access the engine itself, and you can change your FOV that way. I haven't messed with it yet. In fact, I'm a little afraid to mess with anything just because I'm already teetering right on the edge of recommended specs. I am running this on an RTX 4070, but it defaulted me at medium settings on absolutely everything, which I'm okay with because I don't want to mess with my frame rate at all, and it is barely sticking at 60 at the moment. In fact, one of my big pet peeves in any game is motion blur. I always try to turn it off whenever possible. However, as soon as I did so, it dropped my frame rate all the way down to 30 right away, and I would rather deal with the motion blur at 60 than try to run a PowerPoint presentation with no motion blur. That's just not going to happen for me. So I've kind of left everything as it is, and again, I'm not messing with things too much running it at 1440p, but this is just what my monitor resolution is anyway, which is why I'm not messing with that. Either 4K would just be unnecessary for me. Now, going to the sound menus, control menus, there's not really much here in the sound menu. There's definitely more that they could probably do with this. I think they probably should just stick language and sound in the same menu, because this language menu isn't really doing anything. Like, there are a lot of language options, sure, but it's not doing anything. Like, this is the whole menu. Like, you could probably just put these together. I don't know. That seems a little silly to me. Controls are pretty good. There's definitely some more they could do. I haven't messed with controller binds at all, but for key binds, I usually like it when there's more than a second input binding option. Maybe a third would be nice, but as it is right now, I don't have too many problems with that. And then the accessibility menu, which I actually think is pretty barren at the moment. There's definitely a lot more they could do with this, especially in the way of subtitles. I wish there was an option to make subtitles and the spoken language separate at times, mainly just because I want to actually be able to like experience some of the alternative language voice actors. That's just a me thing though, and I'm sure other people would as well, because there's plenty of people who play games with different audio from the subtitles. And then, of course, there's just the debug menu, which you can, there's a couple things in here. They do want your feedback because this is an early access build, of course, and there's a lot of things that you can submit in here, but for the most part, that pretty much covers all of the settings. There's one more thing I want to talk about from a technical aspect, but we're going to jump in so I can well, not necessarily show it, but I can at least explain it. Now, I'm here in my life pod right off the bat, and I'll get into all my tools and equipment. It's actually almost nighttime as well, but let me see if I can find one floating around somewhere. Where are they? I'm not actually seeing any. Oh, there's one way off in the distance over there. Okay, these guys right here, just as it turns to nighttime, maybe it'll actually show it, although I kind of don't want to. These are basically the reef backs of this game. They are totally docile. They're basically these big blimps with like a long tentacle dangling down from them, and they make these noises, not as incessantly as the reef backs, mind you. But at nighttime, I've noticed quite often they have this like lighting effect on them that isn't working as intended. It's like it can't decide whether it's supposed to be daytime or nighttime lighting, and so they'll start just flickering like a strobe light. That can get pretty distracting pretty quickly, and not a fan of that, but that's the only major visual glitch that I have noticed thus far. Now, I'm actually going to wait for it to be daytime before we proceed any further because I want to be able to show everything with clarity here. Luckily, the day and night cycles in this game are shorter than they were in the first game, so this shouldn't take too long. All right, there we go. It's mostly morning at this point, and now we can continue. All right, let's just jump on in and take a look around really quickly. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to point out some of the fauna that is swimming around here that you can interact with, of which, wow, there's like no fish. Okay, here we go. We got a few over here that I can actually talk about real quick. Right off the bat, prey fauna, the fish you can actually pick up and consume. There's not a lot in this game. You've got these three right here, which are basically just color swaps of each other. You got the half moon, the harvest moon, and the blue moon. I think the blue moon got away from me. They're the more rare of the three. And then there was also the first guy I picked up, which is the Geordi. And then there's these, the water slugs, which are your source of water in this game. You just throw them in the fabricator and you get yourself a water bottle, which gives you 40 water. That's it. That's all that's in this entire game that I have been able to find as far as consumable fish are concerned. Yeah, there's not a lot. However, they have streamlined the fish, the food and water process around this time so well that I don't think that's really the issue I have with it. It's more just the visual flair and flavor of it all, and the fact that there's just not a lot to really see in that regard because, well, you think of the first game where you dove in and there were peepers and boomerang fish and bladderfish and Gary fish and all these other kinds that were swimming around, and this time around the diversity isn't all that great as far as the little fish are concerned, the small fries are concerned. However, it does get a bit better when we get to some of the more medium fish and some of the larger fish, which we'll talk about later. There's two aggressive ones in particular I want to go over, one of which is actually that guy right there. I'll talk about him in a minute, but before I do, right off the bat, let's just kind of talk about Subnautica itself, and yes, I am actually seeing that visual glitch right there. That is probably the first time I've seen that. Let's talk about the actual gameplay itself and how this differentiates. So this is a Subnautica game through and through, without question. You got your scanner, you got your habitat builder, you got, well, your sea glide essentially. I think it's called a wave breaker this time. I can't actually look here. Let me swap it out. A wave maker, excuse me. This is your Sea Glide, and it comes without the really stupid and obtrusive map that the Sea Glide had in the first place, so I like it a lot. You also have your multi-tool, which is replacing your knife this time around, because guess what? You do not have a means of defense at all this time around. If something attacks you, you can't hit it back. I mean, you can try to. You won't feel very good, but you can certainly make an attempt. I also call this thing the squeaky hammer, because that's basically what it is. It has exactly one function and one function only, and that's for knocking off pieces of plants, essentially. So, great example are these things over here. They have something in the middle that you can grab out of all of them that's used for one resource, but also if you hit them with the survival multi-tool, you will break off a couple of these, which create fibrous pulps. These are used for certain recipes, certain food recipes, including one that involves these three guys. In fact, I'll be able to show that here in a bit. But that's all it is. Big old squeaky hammer. You also got your repair tool in here. And then, of course, there's the air bladder, which I have found myself using so much more this time around than I ever did in previous games. Allows you to ascend the surface really quickly, pretty much from any depth above 100 meters. You can get up there super fast. And this is actually where the movement tech of this game comes in and what makes it, I think, interesting in that regard. So you don't have a means of defending yourself, but you do have more evasion tactics this time around. One, you have the Wave Maker, which again is like the Sea Glide. You also have this little ability right here, which I'm going to do it now. A dash, which that comes with the bio mods that I'll get into here in a bit. And then you can also use the air bladder. So typically if I'm ever being accosted by an aggressive predator, I will pull out the Wave Maker, basically dash away, and then chain it into my air bladder and use that to ascend. And by the time I have added all of that distance, they usually get disinterested and leave me alone. So that's been kind of my typical evasion tactic, as opposed to, well, trying to fight them back like you would in previous games, which was well, definitely a certain way of going about things, and there's obviously a different design philosophy this time around for a myriad of reasons. Now, Let's talk about those biomods. Okay, you're going to get these, your first set of these pretty early on, but spoiler alert, I haven't even unlocked a single additional one in the time I've been playing. You need to get some more things to even get to that point. So these are actually the starting ones right here. You got your active biomods and your passive biomods. Your active one includes your dash, which I showed before. You can use that every 5 seconds. And the other one is the Pathfinder. Release a trail of pheromones you can follow to find your way. It works the same way as the Pathfinder of the first game, except instead of it being a bunch of lights that you had to like manually plant down, it just kind of shows this little oozing trail behind you that's like, hey, this is the direction you came from. If you get disoriented in these games a lot, this can be helpful. I typically do not, because I'm always on the move, and I've never really found a biome in any Subnautica game outside of maybe the caves under the mountain island in the first game where I could get lost and there wasn't some additional oxygen source in there. Passive biomods. So I've been using Sea Skimmer to add to the speed as well. Swim faster when close to underwater surfaces or the seafloor. Let me kind of just show this in action real fast. So you can normally swim around, but if you get close to the ground, you do move a little faster. This can also be chained with the Wave Maker to make you go even quicker. So I've been kind of skimming along the seafloor for the most part while I'm swimming around, which just makes things a lot better mobility-wise for me. And I also prefer it to this one. Oxygen control slows oxygen consumption when not moving. I'm never going to use that. I'm always on the move in these games, and I feel like that's the only way to really play these games is by constantly being on the move, so it just doesn't really help me, especially in this game where there are fewer incentives than ever to stay put in one place, because even mining materials is now something that you can be doing on demand and very, very quickly. Now I can get into the last tool here, which is the Sonic Resonator, at least the last one I have up to this point. I'm going to see if I can find something to use it on, but this is what the big mining outcrops are, what you use for the big mining outcrops as opposed to a prawn suit. As far as I can tell, there's no prawn suit in this game whatsoever, so you're not going to be able to do that. Instead, and if I can just kind of show it here, you just go up to a big mining outcrop. In fact, there's one right there, so I can show this. You just go up to it, and you're just going to use the Sonic Resonator to create this concussive blast that'll break it apart, and boom, there you go. Very, very simple, much quicker. So there's no reason to be staying put in this game, no reason to just kind of sit in one place. You have every incentive to just constantly be on the move while you're playing it. It is much more mobility and evasion focused this time around, as opposed to defensive focused and kind of just paying attention to your surroundings, especially because I also just noticed I have a one of these that's not actually done. That's funny. Especially because this time around, creature behavior incentivizes staying on the move more than ever. But we'll get into that in a minute. Now, let's talk about some quality of life improvements, and especially the crafting. And this also goes hand in hand with the food and the water as well. So, for example, if I go into my food menu here, I can cook all of the fish that I caught before, the Giordi, the Half Moon, the Harvest Moon, the Blue Moon, but you can also see that there are prepared meals up here as well. These are recipes you're going to unlock by scanning things and just kind of learning more about the environment. There was only one prepared meal in the previous games, and this was a salad that you could get pretty late on in Below Zero that was just super overpowered compared to all the other food sources. This time around, there's a lot of these. So like you can see here, Half Moon jerky. I mean, this is just 40 food, which is it's pretty good, but it only requires 2 Half Moon and some salt. You also got the Chermoya chutney. These little Chermoya rot sacks are all over the game, and then Sugar of Saturn requires lead and salt. But this one right here, this has been my favorite one to make so far because it gives me the most food and health, and it's the easiest to get. All you have to do is grab one of each of those fish, Half Moon, Harvest Moon, and Blue Moon, and a fibrous pulp, and then when you craft it, you actually get 3 of these, which has just been fantastic, and it gives you the most food of anything on here except for this, the Pavlova, which I can't even do yet because one of the items on here I haven't even found yet. So it's an option, but right now, this is just plenty of food. And this is early on in the game, too. I'm getting tons of it. So, once again, food and water, not really the big problem with these games, but that's never been the point. Subnautica is a survival game, but it's not like other survival games where you're relying so much on food and water, and I really appreciate that. However, one last thing they did do to kind of knock you down a peg is you can't overflow your food this time around. So notice I just ate something that was supposed to give me 60, and it brought me up from 50 to 100. In the last 2 Subnautica games, if you ate something while at like 99 food, you could actually overflow the meter. Not this time. You can't overflow either meter, so you do need to be a bit more attentive about your food and water this time around. But actually getting your hands on food and water, it's not hard. It's really not hard. I mean, you can find water slugs absolutely everywhere, and they give you double the water that bladderfish were giving you in the first game. And those are arguably harder to catch than these slugs are. Like, you just go find a few of them, just kind of go over the top, and look, boom, right there. They don't even move. They don't even, like, evade you. There's nothing they can do. It's so easy to get food and water this time. Crafting has also been streamlined significantly because the fabricator pulls from all available lockers in the area. No longer do you have to have items in your inventory to be able to craft them. So, like, for example, in my inventory, all I've got in here is 5 titanium and then these Lucifer rot sacks. But if I go into the fabricator, look, I can craft things that use quartz. I can craft things that use copper. I can craft things that use more fibrous pulp than I have in my inventory. Quartz right here. Acidic rayon pouches. Like, all of this is stuff that's in my lockers, and the fabricator just pulls straight from it. Love that change. Super, super nice. It also means I don't really have to, like, organize my stuff in here anymore, so I'm not having to figure out where to pull things from. I can just stuff everything in here, and I'm good to go. Like, I just put my water slug away. Well, let's say I want to get water. Just go in here, and boom, I can craft it. Very, very simple. I love that change. I think it's fantastic. Now, let's start getting into some of the other things that I don't like as much. For one, we got the processor here. Now, in the first 2 games, there were a couple of ingots that could be crafted, titanium and playsteel ingots in particular. This has now been designated as a job of this machine, the processor. And I don't really like the idea of delineating jobs that were once all used by one piece of equipment to additional pieces of equipment. That's not a design I feel is very helpful in terms of streamlining things. I kind of understand this one, though, just because there are so many more types of ingots this time around, as you can see. In fact, there's 6 types, one of which can be crafted from 2 different resources. And then you can also make things like biofuel. Look, you also got alternative recipes, like you can use fibrous pulp to get water. And there's also different types of acids you can get. You can get glass from salt instead of quartz. Like, those are pretty cool. But there's a time limit on, or there's a time to build on this stuff as well. So, like, see here, the playsteel ingot requires 2 minutes of processing time to make it. So they wanted to make making these ingots a bit more complicated. And I kind of understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, I also do think it is a bit overcomplicating the situation. I don't know how I feel about it. What I do like, and I want to say I love this, but I still don't know yet. And that's this thing right here. This is and as I jump on that, I wanted to actually get in it. This is the tadpole, okay? The tadpole is basically if the sea moth and the sea truck had a baby, and it could do some things better than the sea moth, but also not do nearly as much as the sea truck. So sea truck is kind of controversial because people didn't like the fact that you had one vehicle doing absolutely everything. You were just attaching modules onto it, and it was not only replacing the Seamoth, but it was also replacing the Cyclops. Well, this time around, you don't have either of those. You just have the Tadpole, and the Tadpole, it is a Seamoth, but a Seamoth that you can add attachments to. Why did I just lose it? There we go. That you can add attachments to. Like, I've got wings on mine that make it go a little faster. Oh, please don't attack that. Don't. Oh, come on, dude. Okay, I think I was able to avoid him. You can add attachments to it and make it go faster, but there isn't really much in the way of, like, additional things that you can put onto this. So it's kind of trying to do the same thing that the Sea Truck is, where you can, like, get a base form of it, and then you can just add more onto it later and it becomes more effective. But at the same time, it's also trying to do a lot less because they want you to be able to do more outside of your vehicle and not rely on it as much this time around, which I like. I appreciate that, and I understand it, and it goes along with the design philosophy of this time around, where they're intentionally making the player more vulnerable and more susceptible to certain threats, whereas in the previous games, yeah, things could get dangerous, but as soon as you got, like, the prawn suit, for instance, you were practically invincible. And there were certain add-ons you could get to the prawn suit that just made it stupid overpowered. And the Cyclops, aside from encountering Leviathan creatures, was also stupid overpowered and could ignore everything else in the game. And the Sea Truck, there was not really anything aside from one creature type that could do a ton of damage to it. Like, there's a myriad of reasons why they made the decisions that they made, and I think that they've come up with a pretty elegant solution this time around. It also helps that the Tadpole maneuvers every bit as well as the Sea Glide, or not the Sea Glide, the Sea Moth. I haven't been seeing Sea Glide this entire time. I think I have. The Sea Moth has been. Oh my gosh, I think I really did do that. No, I meant the Sea Moth. Sorry. That was a mistake on my part. Yeah, it's really maneuverable, and that's really nice. but it doesn't really do too much, and that's a good thing, but also kind of not a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. You saw that red creature was attacking my tadpole. They see the tadpole as more of a threat than the player character themselves, which is kind of funny. They're actually just defensive creatures, but will occasionally get on your case. They mostly just kind of spend all day ramming each other in the head, but for some reason they see your tadpole as like one of them, and so they go, oh, I'm putting on a fight now, and they'll hit it and do like 10 damage or something along those lines. It's a pretty cool creature concept, but otherwise they're mostly defensive. So like I can compare these guys to kind of like the gasopods. So if I come up to him, ignoring you, he's going to like flash at me, but he's not really going to do anything. He's just going to be like, get away. But if he sees my tadpole, see if I can actually show this, he will do the same thing. Come here, dude. Let's see. You mad at me? What's up, dude? Oh, he's looking at me. But he's not flaring his... I love how he's, like, staring at me, too. They do not like the tadpole as much. I think it's because I already kind of set him off once that they're not giving me as many issues. Oh, hold on. Watch them. Oh, they gave up. Come on. Come on, you. These guys are, like, my favorites so far. Not these guys, though. These guys are obnoxious. They're kind of like the stalkers of this game. They have a bit of a different behavior. They will watch you. They will stare at you. They will look at you. Okay, they did actually collide down there. And they will take bites out of you, but they'll kind of wait for like the most inopportune time to do it. So if you're swimming around, they won't necessarily tail you, but they'll kind of move around in circles around you and then eventually go in for a bite and then run away. They don't do a lot of damage. In fact, I think they only do 5, as you can see here, because I got bit by one earlier. But they are still really obnoxious, and so you have to be kind of aware of them. This is where I use my Wavemaker bladder combo to sort of get away from them super quick. However, then we have this guy. Okay, let's talk about this dude. This is a marrow breach, and marrow breaches are basically the sharks of this game. Sand sharks, bone sharks, you name it. They are very aggressive. Oh, stay away from me. They are very, very, very aggressive, and when you're in your tadpole, they're not too bad. But I'm going to see if I can show this. The second you get out of your tadpole, however... Okay, here we go. So, he is probably going to hunt me down, because he's immediately mad at me, and they have a long range that they can look at you, too. Oh, no, he's not actually looking at me. Okay, maybe I lucked out. Let's see. Oh, here he goes. Yep. Okay, I'm surprised he only took a couple nips out of me. Dude, 3 times, man. My gosh. Oh, I hate these things. Yeah, so they are super, super aggressive and will attack you often. They, again, don't do too much damage. All those nips, as you can see, only did like 8 damage to me, or 9 damage to me. But they do also have an attack where they'll like grab you and shake you around. That will do a bit more. My problem with them isn't the damage that they do. My problem with them is how unbelievably aggressive they are. So like that one right there isn't too bad. However, if I go back towards the lava area, and I'm going to see if I can show this really quick, where the water was starting to get hot and the temperature was rising, there are a ton of marrow breaches in that area, and it is very hard to like keep track of them, and you sometimes just straight up cannot get out of your tadpole without running into a bunch of them, and they'll swarm you so quickly. It's so irritating. I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I get it. They want to have an ultra aggressive creature that like deters you, but they're so aggressive to the point where it actually makes it really hard to do anything, and it just makes me not want to actually like explore these areas at all. I want to see if I can actually like run into a few of them, because I know what's going to happen. The second I get out of my tadpole, suddenly I'm going to start running into a ton of them, and they're going to be like, oh, hey, here we are, and then they'll just swarm me and attack me and nearly kill me. But, of course, as soon as I start actually looking for them, I can't run into them. It also doesn't help that it's dark right now. But they are all over the place in this area. And, I don't know, maybe I can see if I can show some of them. Luckily, if you go down below, there's not too many. But they are definitely a different type of predator from anything we've seen in the first 2 games. I think the closest comparison would actually be the Chelicerates from Below Zero, although maybe not as terrifying as the Chelicerates, because that thing does a lot more damage, but it's sort of this like in-between creature where it's not quite a Leviathan, but it also is super hyper-aggressive and is always on top of you and moves really quick. There we go. I know there's like baby ones too. Like there's some that are like normal size, some huge ones, and then there's some little ones swimming around, but they all have equal amounts of aggression. And again, the second I get out of my tadpole, they will swarm me so fast that it actually makes it really, really hard to do anything, and I'm kind of afraid to do that. I kind of don't want to do that right now, which is why I'm like staying. And that's the other thing too. If they catch wind of you, they'll do that, which is annoying. But they'll also just kind of watch you. Like, they'll see you and they'll be like, huh, that's interesting, and they'll just sort of sit on your vehicle for a bit and sort of follow you. And you'll think you're safe. You'll like swim away from them a ways, and then you'll turn around and they're like right there. Like, that happens all the time. And again, you're like, okay, well, I swam away from him, so now I can get out and get some gold right here. Nope, they'll just jump right on top of you and attack you, and they'll carry you away too, because they'll do that thing where they latch onto you and drag you away. Okay, hold on a second. I think I'm actually going into spoiler territory going out that way. I'm going to go back the other way. And the reason I think that is because the music changed. There's one thing not too far from this area that I really don't want to show. So I'm doing all I can to not show that to you guys, because I would consider that a major spoiler. But I did want to at least show that those marrow breaches are all over the place over there, which I encountered a few, but honestly less than I remember seeing when I was last there. So maybe not the best representation of what I was talking about, but I digress. Yeah, this game's not too hard to not die in. There's a story-related thing that I actually found to be the most dangerous thing I've encountered thus far, but I can't really go into it too much, so I don't want to talk about it, but that was probably the closest I came to dying in this game, when I was dealing with that. I think you'll know what I'm talking about when you experience it for the first time, because there's no way to defend yourself against it, but surprisingly, it's not something big, it's something completely different, and again, I don't really want to get into that too much without spoiling things. Alright, let's talk about method of story delivery here really quickly as I dock my tadpole and sort of let that recharge. So this game does deliver the story in much the same way as the first game. Also, my bioreactor is out of fuel. That's awesome. Let me go and get myself some fish that I had stored up in here that I was using. I was just kind of throwing whatever. Oh, I'm all out. All right, well, I guess I'll have to use this fibrous pulp in the meantime then, so pardon me while I go do that real quick. But yeah, the way this story works this time around is much the same as it was in Subnautica 1, where you are told things by your PDA. Although the PDA has a little bit of an extra function to it, it's this thing right here, this NOAA terminal, which I clicked on that and I already immediately regret it. I'll actually just cut that. This terminal and the PDA in general are still going to lead you on a path to certain waypoints, and you're going to find out more about what's going on as you go. It's sort of like in Subnautica 1 with the life pods, where you're supposed to go to each one, and then as you go, you learn more things about the planet. But then there's also some additional things going on that you start to figure out, and then, of course, the story unfolds throughout the game. This is no different, but there's a couple extra layers to it. Subnautica 2, out of every game in the series, is definitely the closest to what I would call a horror game. I still don't think it's quite horror yet from what I've played, but it wouldn't surprise me if it fully becomes horror a little bit later on. It's definitely got creepier, eerier, more uncanny vibes than anything 1 or Below Zero was doing. This game is much more uncanny. It's got this extra layer of just like, I don't know what's going on, and it's also way scarier than I'm able to wrap my head around, and I've got to find out more about it as time goes on. But it's also definitely still connected to the events of the first 2 games. In fact, one of the very first PDAs that I found, or one of the very first data points I found, actually straight up tells you about the events of Subnautica 1. So there is definitely a connection there, but it's also not so much of a connection that I'm going to go and say, oh, you got to play the first game and Below Zero so you don't get spoilers. Like, no, it's not really that. Like, you could jump right into Subnautica 2 if you wanted to just fine. I think you'd probably have a harder time understanding the mechanics of the game than you would understanding the story. But at the same time, this game is definitely going for a much more oppressive, darker, dingier, more alien atmosphere than anything else that the first game was doing, and I think I like it. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I think I like it. I think it's interesting. I think they're doing some really cool things here. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not just going to bed, there is no go to bed, wake up, and it's daytime mechanic this time around, which I really hope they bring that back, because that's actually something I really appreciated in the first game. But yeah, the delivery this time is interesting. It is a lot of going after data pads. It is a lot of games sort of leading you without necessarily holding your hand, and that whole method that I just love from the first game so much. So I think they're doing a lot of things right here. but I can't really explain too much again without spoiling stuff, so I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. But there are some things here that are related that I also can't show, like this, which is your create a character section. If I wanted to, I could just change to any of these base characters, and I'm sure they're going to add more models as time goes on. You can also change your suit color if you want to, but for right now, it's just kind of basic. All of this is stuff that's going to get added later, but it is story relevant, and more of that is going to unveil as time goes on. But I'm going to save that personally for when I actually get around to Let's Playing this game. It's definitely high on my list to get around to actually doing once it becomes fully available and hits its 1.0 release, but as far as we know, that's not going to be for a couple of years yet. This game's got a lot of time to cook, and I'm certainly going to be watching it all the way through, hoping that they make the right decisions and hoping that everything they add improves the game. But obviously, there's still a ways to go. Like I said, I'm almost 6 hours in. I'd say now I'm at 6 hours if I include this recording session, but at this point, I already do sort of feel like I'm getting close to the end of what this build has to offer, so there's a possibility that I might run out of things to do here, but I don't know, maybe there's a whole lot more for me to see, and I've gone and looked around a little bit with creative mode and seen that there are many, many biomes I haven't even been to yet here in my survival mode, but like I said, those biomes were a bit on the barren side. Like, some of those later areas just don't have a lot going on, but again, that's to be expected in early access. For what this game is now, though, this is easily a solid 8+ hours of great survival content at the price of $30, so while some people don't want to be spoiled and have the main experience ruined for them, in that regard, I wouldn't recommend this build, but if you want just a good survival game as it is, it's already very fantastic, and it's already offering quite a bit and is bound to offer even more down the line. And on top of all of that, I don't know, there's something a little bit satisfying about paying for this game and sticking it to Crafton. Given all of the crap that they pulled, please go read that story if you haven't already. It's very, very funny. Just shows how unbelievably out of touch and unbelievably stupid CEOs are. No one ever said you had to be smart to be a CEO of a major corporation. I guess you just need either Nepo money or a business degree, but I digress. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for this today. Thank you all so very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it very much. We'll get back to Destiny tomorrow, and I will see you all in the next one.